And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ask the Theologian on this Wednesday. On Wednesdays, we study the Gospel of John. Looking forward to that tonight, 6 p.m. live from the Taos First Baptist Church. And I should say 6-ish p.m. Since we started back with the regular gathering and our supper ahead of time, it's sometimes pushing it to get in there at 6 o'clock, but won't be long. If we happen not to be there, just hang tight for a few moments and we'll study it. I'll be live. Unlike this broadcast, this is actually yet another pre-recorded broadcast, Tuesday and Wednesday this week, pre-recorded. I'll be back in the desk on Thursday, sitting here live for your biblical, theological, and worldview questions. This one is pre-recorded. The chats are live, however, so you can chat away, and you can even ask a question, and ask that question by putting the word question in, and that'll go in the hopper, the theological hopper, the Ask the Theologian hopper, and we'll pull that out and use it maybe tomorrow, certainly in a future broadcast, and look forward to all of that. I want to start out today with a question someone has asked me about my opinion about this particular quote. The quote is on a book. He says, I've been asked to review a book. Here's the quote. The application of the text to the circumstances and context of those listening is the goal of all preaching. Obviously, we're probably talking about a preaching book here. And once again, we see it, the application of the text and the circumstances and context of those listening is the goal of all preaching. I hardly disagree. I know that is what most preachers have been taught. I know that is what I was taught as preaching. I know that for many years I would seek to give application to the text. I disagree in totality that the application of the text is the goal of all preaching. I actually think that the preacher is a teacher. And just imagine, I've used this example a number of times, but just imagine maybe in the third grade when the teacher is preaching, when the teacher is teaching the little third graders the multiplication tables. The application of that knowledge is honestly, utterly irrelevant, because the teacher has no idea what sort of mathematical dilemmas they are going to have in their future. That teacher just knows, I'm supposed to teach that 7 times 7 equals 49, 5 times 5 equals 25, 6 times 6 equals 36. And I'm going to stop while I'm ahead on all that one. And it is the knowledge itself that is the application. Now, let's suppose that a third grade math teacher taught math like a modern day preacher who's been taught that the application of the text is the goal of her teaching. Then she would say, okay, she's going to get out there and this child's going to want to buy 2 African violets, and they're both $1.99 a piece, and $1.99 times 2 is going to be $2.98 and $3.98, who knows? And you know, they're only going to have a $5 bill, and so let's say all this. Well, that's all perfect as long as we're raising a kid who wants to buy 2 African violets, and those African violets cost $1.99, and she's got a $5 bill. Otherwise, it becomes somewhat irrelevant. Now, if the teacher says, I'm going to teach math, math will apply itself, then that child will learn math. They'll learn it quickly. They will know it inherently. They'll work through all the problems. It doesn't matter what the situational, contextual problem is in the future. That child is ready and prepared for it. Now, here's what's happened in the church today. The church gave up responsibility for training its ministers. And so it raises a young man who's going into the ministry, and it says, that's not our responsibility to train him. We'll just send him off. Maybe we'll pay the bill. We'll send him off. We're never going to ask him what he's learning. We're never going to look at his textbooks. We're never going to meet his professors. We're never going to follow up. We're never going to listen to it because we trust the seminaries. And the child is sent off there, and he's taught that the application of the text and the circumstances and context of those listening is the goal. The application is the goal of preaching. And he comes back an application-based preacher. And as an application-based preacher, he takes the text from Leviticus, the text from Daniel, the text from Hezekiah, the text from Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, whatever it is. He takes that text and he gives application. If he is keen and reads people well and knows his congregation, then much of the time he's going to give some degree of application that's valuable for them at the moment because he knows them. If he doesn't know them that well, he doesn't know their circumstances, he hasn't lived their life, as most young preachers would be true, then he's just it's going to be hit or miss. There's a person in the congregation or two that maybe it's going to, maybe everyone in the congregation is sitting there thinking, why is he telling us this? I understood this 30 years ago. I don't get what, and it's just a wasted sermon because he was making the application of the text to be the goal of the sermon. Now, what if the seminary actually taught, in fact, let's skip that. What if the church said, hey, young man, you're wanting to go into ministry. It would be an utter waste of your time and your brain and our money to send you to the seminary. We don't want to do that. We want you to be a pastor worth having because we're going to need you someday because there's a looming shortage of pastors out there. And so we are going to teach you. We have bought you a Bible, and we bought you a treasury of Scripture knowledge, and we bought you a Strong's Concordance, and we even went so far as to buy the treasury of Scripture knowledge. And we want you to study these things. We want you to learn. We want you to study with our pastor. We want you to grow. We're going to give you a very in-depth Bible quiz one of these days. We want you to have Bible knowledge, and then we want you to take that Bible knowledge and we want you to pass that Bible knowledge on to us or those of us or those that you will be preaching to. And we want you to understand that the conveyance of biblical knowledge is the goal of preaching. Biblical knowledge, like math, will apply itself. So, I'm with you on this one. The application of the text and circumstances and context of those listening is the goal on preaching. The fellow who sent it to me said, I have to disagree with the premise. I would disagree with the premise as well. Question the assumptions. Now, if you go to the big box seminary or even the little box seminary, what you're going to find is that is what they taught. That's what I was taught. That's what preachers for generations have been taught. We are application based in our training, and I think it has been an utter failure. Just like the seminaries. As a matter of fact, an utter failure. Our friend Ives has a question down in San Fernando, Pampanga, the Philippines. And we appreciate you, Ives. Thank you for listening to us as you get opportunity there in the middle of the night. Romans chapter 16, verses 25 and 26 says, can you please explain this? How can this be the mystery revealed to Paul and be made known to the prophets and the commands of God if it was secret in times of old? Romans chapter 16, verses 25 and 26. Now to him that is of the power to establish you according to my gospel and the preaching of Jesus Christ, according to the revelation of mystery, which was kept secret since the world began, but now is manifest. And by the scriptures of the prophets, according to the commandment of the everlasting God, made known to all nations for the obedience of faith. Now, I think this is one of those that we have to read very precisely, very carefully. You know that I like sentence diagramming. I think especially if we diagram a sentence in the Greek, it's not an easy thing to do, even learning diagramming, but it's a very valuable thing. And what we would notice is certainly in verse 25, he is talking about the Pauline mystery, the revelation of the mystery which was kept secret since the world began. That's the one he's talking about. So then Ives comes and says, well, if it's made secret since, or kept secret since the world began, how is it made manifest or made known? By the scriptures of the prophets and according to the commandments of the everlasting God. That doesn't seem to work. And you're right, it doesn't work. So we have to be careful how we read this. Grammatically, if we were to outline that sentence, I think what we would have is this. So this mystery was kept secret and now is made manifest. That is, it's not a secret anymore. It is now manifest. And then this phrase right here, we have to set aside as a clause. And a clause is supplemental and going to provide some more information, but is not inherently required in the sentence. So then we would look at it and say, but now is manifest, made known to all nations for the obedience of faith. So we can skip over that. Now, as we skip over it, it's not only made manifest now, but also by the scriptures of the prophets, according to the commandment of the everlasting God, it is made known. I think what we've got here is Paul's statement that even though you cannot find the mystery, because it was hidden in God, hidden from the ages, you cannot find the mystery in the prophets, like my Bible right now is open to the book of Daniel. You can't find the mystery there. Nonetheless, the things of the prophets and the commandments of the everlasting God support it. They allow for it. And by rightly dividing, we can understand how there's no trace of it there. There's no foreshadow there, and yet it's built upon it. And so it's almost like saying, this is a little bit of a cheap illustration here, but it's almost like saying that God was building a building and he laid the foundation in the Old Testament in the prophets. So let's go even further than that. He laid the foundation and he built the first floor. So he's got a one-story building there. It was never known that there was going to be a second floor added to it. But the second floor is wholly dependent upon the first floor. It rests upon the first floor. And I think this is what Paul is saying as it's made manifest, made known to the nations. And one of the ways it's made known to the nations is it's built upon these things of the prophets. Thanks for your question there. I appreciate that. Ives, God bless you. Let's see, let's go to Russell in Kent today. If you're just joining us, I'll remind you that today's broadcast is pre-recorded. So if you are putting in your chat and saying, why isn't he responding to me? It's because I'm not here. It's an illusion. It's pre-recorded. Right now it happens to be Sunday night. And my plan is to take Monday and Tuesday and diligently prepare, and Wednesday, actually, by the way, because this is Wednesday morning that you're hearing this, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, diligently preparing for our September 3rd through 7th, Labor Day retreat. Information at randywhiteministries.org. And so I will get to your questions and take those questions that you are giving live today. I hope you're enjoying your interaction with one another as well. But Russell in Kent, home of E.W. Bullinger, at one time anyway, he has a question about Zechariah chapter 4, verse 9, and asks if Zechariah 4:9 is a future resurrection prophecy. Let's look at Zechariah 4:9. The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house. Let's stop right there for just a moment. There were two important people in the book of Zechariah. And those two important people are Zerubbabel and Joshua. Zerubbabel was the legitimate king. He's of the line of David. If we do find any types of Messiah, it's probably going to be Zerubbabel if we find these in the days of Zechariah. Perhaps Joshua, because Jesus was a priest and king. Joshua is the legitimate high priest. Zerubbabel is the legitimate king, but they are under the Persians at this day. And so there really is no king. Zerubbabel's a governor. There really is no high priest in a sense because he's having to answer to the Persian king back home. But these are our guys. Now, with that, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundations of this house. That's the temple. His hands shall also finish it. And thou shalt know that the Lord of hosts hath sent me unto you. You know, the conclusion right here. His hands also shall finish it. Now, there is a possibility that finish it there has application beyond what we would consider just in the normal kind of finish it type work. You know, normally we say, I started something, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to bring it to completion. When you're talking about the foundation of this house, was Zechariah giving the prophecy that he's only laid the foundation? Don't worry, this job is going to get done, and it's going to get done before Zerubbabel's dead. That might be just, you know, the plain sense of the scripture. And I think if the plain sense makes common sense, seek no other sense. So did Zerubbabel finish the temple? Did he do that particular work? That's what we are wanting to know. That's what we are considering. Let's look at a couple of things to investigate. Let's go to our companion Bible here. I'll use the one online. Let's see if Bullinger has anything to say here. The hands and etc. He says this is the explanation of the vision, which is in the previous verses. And let's see. His hand shall finish it. Thou shalt know the Lord, that the Lord of hosts have sent me. Okay, just gives a little textual variant there. And he does not tell us anything. Thank you, Dr. Bullinger, for nothing, for not answering our question. Let's back up a little bit. In fact, let's go ahead and look at chapter 4 here. The angel that talked with me came again and waked me as a man that was wakened out of his sleep and said, What seest thou? I said, I have looked, and behold, a candlestick all of gold with a bowl upon the top of it, 7 lamps thereon, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps which were on the top thereof, and 2 olive trees by it, one by the right side of the bowl and the other by the left side. Now, here we're saying 2 olive trees. Sounds a little bit like the 2 witnesses. And indeed, most Bible teachers would put the 2 olive trees and the 2 witnesses together, which then would already have us towards the end time. So Is this a future resurrection prophecy? Maybe so. Verse 4, so I answered and spoke with the angel that talked with me. What are these, my Lord? The angel that talked with me answered and said, knowest thou not what these be? Don't you love that? You don't know? No, my Lord. He's honest. No, my Lord. He answered and spake unto me, saying, this is the word of the Lord unto Zerubbabel, saying, not by might, nor by power, by my spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. Now, you know, that particular phrase there, not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit. Because what's the quote here? The application of the text is the goal of preaching. Because we learned that, we are constantly applying this not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord, constantly applying it to everything that we can possibly apply it to. Our church building program, finishing my homework, whatever it is, we apply this. This has a context, and that context has an application. And really, I would say, hey, we're looking kind of at a kingdom context right here. And it's the kingdom, not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit. Or the temple, the ultimate fulfilled temple, not the temporary fulfilled temple that he's working on right there. He goes on, to say, who art thou, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel thou shalt become a plain, and he shall bring forth the headstone thereof with shoutings, crying, grace, grace unto it. Who art thou, O great mountain? Bollinger here says, add by supplying the ellipsis that standest in the way of Zerubbabel. So we again look at this in verse 7. Who art thou, O great mountain, the one standing in Zerubbabel's way? And he shall bring forth the headstones thereof, shouting, grace, grace unto it. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundations of this house. His hand shall also finish it, that thou shalt know that the Lord of hosts hath sent me. Now, the answer is, we're saying, is this a future resurrection or millennial prophecy? The answer is, from those particular verses, we can't totally tell, because there's enough in the context that says, this sounds eschatological, this sounds like end times. But it could also be that, hey, he's just saying, Zerubbabel, you got some enemies right now, but hang in there. The Lord of hosts is saying, you are going to finish this job. Now, in Jewish scripture, Hebrew scripture, it very well could be that the answer, is this an immediate prophecy or is this a long-term prophecy? The answer could be yes. Yeah, he's talking about the immediate temple, but so much more. And I think there's hints to that again, tell us that there is so much more on that, and through that, let's, as you all know, I sometimes like to just see what the Jewish commentators say on this. So let's go to our Middle Ages friend Rashi and check him out as we go to the Tanakh. And we're going to look again in the Nevi'im, the prophets, and we're going to go down to Zechariah, and we're going to look in the 4th chapter and go and turn on Rashi, and let's go down to verse 9 and see if he's got anything to say. Zerubbabel's hands founded this house, his hands shall complete it, and you shall know that the Lord of hosts sent me. From beginning to the end in the days of Cyrus. Okay, he takes his hands founded the house in the days of Cyrus the first, Cyrus the Persian. His hands shall complete it. He says it now. The word, and he gives the Hebrew word, is an expression of completion, as in Isaiah chapter 10, verse 12, when the Lord completes all his work. It appears, at least right there, and we would have to read more of that context there as well, but it appears that Rashi is only taking it for an immediate context there. I think I probably would go both directions. First of all, let's let the plain sense make common sense. And unless we were to read on, we won't do to time, but unless we were to read on and we say, this can't be the earthly temple that he's talking about right there, the second temple, I think we can see, yeah, Zerubbabel's going to finish that job. Let's take that for the plain sense. But let's understand that very likely there's a double sense, a double meaning that is given, and that is millennial in nature, eschatological in nature. I appreciate it. Russell, thank you very much for that question. Let's see. Older question from News Unit. How many years or approximate years is a generation? There is, a bit of, speculation that usually this question has something to do with when is the rapture going to come? This generation shall not pass away. And so there's the effort to figure out, how long is that? How long is a generation? Let's just talk practically here just a little bit. In one practical sense, I would say, my dad is, he's 83 years old. And his generation is him and my aunts and my uncles. And, many of them are still alive. And they're still going strong in their 70s and 80s. I think one of them's even 90. They're in a generation, aren't they? Obviously I'm the next generation after my dad, and then my son and daughter, they're the next generation or the third generation in our context here. And, if they're 80s, 90s, and I'm, mid 50s and planning on retiring in 40 years, 95, I plan to retire, that's a generation's a long time. I am not sure where anybody gets, a generation is 40 years or a generation is 20 years. The word generation doesn't mean that. It just means that, the people born during those years, they're gonna last. That's that generation, my father's generation. How long does your father's generation last? Well, it lasts as long as it lasts. That's how long it lasts. When they're all dead, then I guess it won't last anymore. We talk about the greatest generation, World War II generation, and there are very, very few who are left from the World War II generation. Of course, when I was growing up, in the 70s and 80s, there were World War II guys all over the place. You'd see them and you'd walk with them and talk with them and all that kind of stuff. And they're mostly gone. How long did that generation last? Well, they lasted until they died. That's how long. So I don't think there is an answer to how many years is a generation, but I would say 70, 80 years is a generation. I don't know why people say, a generation is 40 years. Well, what? Do people normally wait 40 years to have the next, if that's the point, when they bring the next generation, then that's it. Well, not very many people wait to 40 years old to have their next child. So maybe you could say, no, a generation is 20 years or 25 years, 23 years. The average age is 26 years when they have children. And that generation's gone. Now we're focusing on another. How do you put all that together to come up with that? The truth is you just make it up. The Bible doesn't tell us how long a generation is. A generation is until they're dead. That's how long a generation is. Once they're dead, then that generation is gone. And obviously that varies, but somewhere between 70 and 100 years, I would say, for the most part, is when a generation is and how long a generation is. I'd say that, that would be, shall we say, somewhat typical in our work there. As far as I know, there's absolutely nothing in the word, I know that in the word generation, there is nothing that gives any indication of numbers of years. Just a little, I spoke about the greatest generation. Until the baby boomers came along, which I think is, like 46 to 64, 1946, 1964. Who made those dates up? I don't know, they made him up. I mean, why is my sister, who was born in 63, a baby boomer, but I was born in 65 and I'm not a baby boomer? We're of the same generation. She is my sister. You know, we're on that same level, but I'm not a boomer. She's a boomer. Don't be calling me boomer, right, boomer? I think this whole thing of naming generations, after that, then it became, I don't know, Generation X and Generation Z and Generation Y and the millennials and all this weird stuff that came. That's all societal makeup stuff. Who cares? And I'm not really all that into the naming of generations anyway. Are there traits that go with different generations? Maybe, but they're probably the same traits that, we talk about millennials today. What's a millennial? I don't know, someone in their 20s, born around the millennium. Is that why they're called millennials? And I think people in their 20s today act and think a lot like people in their 20s in the 1980s when I was in my 20s. That's just how 20-year-olds think. Someday they'll be 50-year-olds and they'll think differently, won't they? Thanks, News Unit. Always good to see you every now and then as you come along to see us. Russell, back in Russell and Kent. Are your children also preachers? Sort of. Many of you know my dad is a retired preacher. Preacher and missionary. Spent time in Zimbabwe, time in India, time in Panama, time in New Mexico, time in Texas. He was a preacher. My grandfather was not a preacher, but a pillar of the church, deacon in the church. The church was started in his home, actually, by his father-in-law, my great-grandfather, who was a preacher. And prior to that, you just go, it's preacher, 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 all these generations going back to, I don't know, I'm going to guess the 1700s. There are preachers in the family. We're a family that's not foreign to preachers. My children, my son, of course, works with us in our ministry here, and I appreciate that because he makes things work. Preachers mess things up. He makes things work. And faithful to the Lord, of course, with his wife and our daughter, our daughter-in-law that lives here. Now, my daughter is married to a preacher. My son-in-law is a preacher. He started a church in his home. They have a house church in Stuart, Florida, the Stuart Bible Church. Anyone down there in the Stuart area, look them up. And you can go keep an eye on my son-in-law. Make sure he's rightly dividing, right? Jackson's father. Thanks, Russell. Appreciate it. It's kind of, I always ask you all questions. I like to get to know people, and I hope it goes both ways. You find out something new and kind of interesting about somebody, and I just love it when people stop. I had a fellow stop by just Friday afternoon, last Friday afternoon. I don't know, 4:00. I was here at the church and had done some things preparing for Sunday, logistical things around the church building, preparing for Sunday. That's like setting up tables and chairs. And that's what preachers do. And fella drove up out here, and he and his wife, and just, thrilled to see me. Oh, there you are, Randy White, right there. And it's a fellow who listens to us every Sunday, every Wednesday, every broadcast. And Brother Mosley, I enjoyed the visit immensely. And it's always so good when you just run into people like this and you get to know them and you get to hear their story and you know, you just become brothers real quick. And that's always a blessing. So thanks for the personal question there. Russell in Kent. Oh, I'm jealous because you live next to those white cliffs of Dover, and just something about those white cliffs of Dover have an appeal to my imagination. I mean, just look at that. Isn't that beautiful? One of the white cliffs right there. There we go. Yeah. I'll take that any day. Is this your home here, right here, Russell? Yeah, I'm going to go see you someday, and Ash and Peter and Terry and Marlon. I get it. It'll come to me. All of you England listeners, thank you very much. Okay, let's go over to the East Coast of the United States. Phil, what do you do with the criminal on the cross who said, "Remember me when you come into your kingdom"? That particular passage is what passage? Luke chapter 23, verse 42. Let's see if we can pull that up. Luke 23, verse 42. Yes. And so what we've got here, the thief on the cross, yes, and he said to Jesus, "Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom." And Jesus said unto him, "Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise." Interesting contrast that is given there between, this when and here today. Now, Jesus is not saying, hey, today is when the kingdom says. It just says they're going to meet together in paradise, which is a portion of Sheol. Now, what do I do with that? Well, I think that the thief on the cross was a Jew, and as a Jew, he knew his kingdom prophecies, Jewish prophecies. He knew that there was a coming kingdom and that the Jewish people and the others of the world were going to be judged. And this thief on the cross, in saying, "Remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom," was saying, I recognize you as the Messianic King. I recognize that you are the promised one. You are blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And so I'm asking, I know right here I've had a judgment that has come down from the Roman government. I'm going to assume he was guilty. But Jesus was hanging there too, judged by the Roman government. So maybe he wasn't guilty. Who knows? Never trust the government. But I think this testifies to the Jewish understanding of salvation. Salvation was a future thing, a future physical thing, a future physical earthly thing. They were going to be raised from the dead on the last day. There was going to be a judgment. And when this guy comes and stands, he wants to say, hey, remember me? I was hanging next to you. I am the one that said, "Dost thou not fear God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly," okay, I guess I got to take that to say he was guilty. "We indeed justly," that's a bit of a confession right there. "We indeed justly, for we received the due reward of our deeds, but this man hath done nothing amiss." And he said to Jesus, "Remember me when thou comest into the kingdom." I suspect that this thief on the cross had knowledge of Jesus prior to this point. I think Jesus was so famous that he understood. So I think he understood Jewish theology, and he understood Jesus, and he put it all together, and he said, "You're the guy." Thanks, Phil. I appreciate that. Congrats on your niece and nephew, I believe, if I've got that right as well. And appreciate all of that. By the way, once again, let me say this is a pre-recorded broadcast. If you're putting in questions, the reason I'm not responding is because I'm recording this on Sunday night, so I can be studying for our retreat. But our special is, if it's not gone off, I think it's still on. Get it quick. Dispensational Synopsis of the New Testament. So cheap. $6.30. Look at that. It's, I don't know, it's 242 pages. Wish I was the publisher. Comes from Grace Publications. I just pass on the good things to you. And you can check that out. Always appreciate it. When you buy a book every now and then, that is a blessing. And let's see. Let's look at another question. Speaking of Kent, Russell and Kent, concerning Matthew chapter 10, verse 4. Says, Simon the Canaanite and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him. Now, this is a list of the 12 apostles here. The names of the 12, do you know them? Can you pass this trivia quiz right here? Who are the names of the 12? I had them memorized at one point, but I don't anymore. Simon, who's called Peter, Andrew, his brother, James, the son of Zebedee, John, his brother, Philip, and Bartholomew, Thomas, and Matthew, the publican, James, the son of Alphaeus, and Lebbaeus, whose surname was Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanite, and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him. Now, another insightful question from the White Cliffs of Dover. If Simon is a Canaanite, is he not a Jew? He is. He is a Jew. He is a Canaanite. How do you put all that together? Let's first of all, just for curiosity's sake, let's follow the cross references. It says, compare Luke 6, verse 15, Matthew and Thomas, James, the son of Alphaeus, and Simon called Zelotes. Presumably, because we've only got so many Simons to deal with among the 12, Simon the Canaanite is Simon called Zelotes. If you translate that, Simon the Zealot. The Zealots were a political party that came about in the intertestamental period. And these were people who wanted to see the overthrow of the Roman government. Interesting that Jesus would choose one of those. Wouldn't it be interesting to listen to Matthew the tax collector for the Roman government and Simon the Zealot, as now they're having dinner together, serving the same master? That'd be interesting. My guess is that Matthew, the tax collector, needed more convincing than did Simon the Zealot. Simon the Zealot was already looking for a Messiah. He wanted a Messiah. Matthew, the tax collector, probably so, but he was willing to work for the enemy. Certainly, there's no zealot there. Now, that's getting off subject just a little bit here. We do that from time to time. Acts chapter 1, verse 13, when they were come in, they went to the upper room where there abode Peter and James, John, Andrew, Philip, Thomas, Bartholomew, Matthew, James, the son of Alphaeus, and Simon Zelotes, and Judas, the brother of James. So again, we're putting these together. Numbers chapter 25:11, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, hath turned my wrath away from the children of Israel while he was zealous for my sake. Okay, now, all that tells us is, hey, we're talking about the zealous guy, like Phinehas. We're talking about Simon. But that doesn't answer our issue here of the Canaanite. And the Canaanite issue, how does that work? Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to look at it here. And verse 4, Canaanitis. Somebody from Canaan, Simon the Canaanite. No issue there. Let's look in the other texts and Canaanian, slight difference there, but not much. Simon the Canaanite, Simon the Canaanian. Let's look to Bullinger, who typically on these little word things and these little background things, Bullinger's your guy. Let's see if he comes through for us here. Russell, last time on Zechariah, he sort of left us hanging, didn't he? Let's see. The Aramaic word for the Greek zelotes, so called from his zeal for the law. See Appendix 94. Okay. Josephus says the sect of the Zealots did not arise until just before the fall of Jerusalem. Obviously, Josephus would be a little bit wrong there in terms of the sect, unless there's not so much a sect, but there are people that are called that. Now, it's interesting that he says this is the Aramaic word for the Greek zelotes. Based upon what do we know? All he has given us there, and this is true with the Companion Bible and Bullinger's work. Bullinger happens to be from your hometown, remember? Do they have I know you can't really answer me because I am not live, but is there any kind of Bullinger museum, Bullinger house, Bullinger, Bullinger birthplace? When you come into Kent, does it say Bullinger born here? Anything like that in Kent, you should look it up and you should let me know, because if so, when we have lunch, I would like to go see it. But what I was saying is Bullinger, to fit it all into the Bible, I mean, this is already fairly big here, and I've got, of course, the enlarged type edition, but he couldn't give all the answers, so he just gives you enough to start chasing. Now, here's what we've got to chase. Is indeed this Canaanites, is that an Aramaic word for the Greek word zelotes? Obviously, he's called zelotes everywhere else. Is Matthew, for whatever reason here, using that word? Now, let's look up the particular word here. Let's go with Strong's and search this in the Bible. Comes out twice. Mark uses it as well, the same, Simon the Zealot. Now, let's that's the two times that, if indeed it's that Aramaic word is used. Let's pull up Strong's here. And Canaanios, it says right here, of Aramaic origin. Compare 7067, Cana. Now that's interesting. Cana, I wonder if there's any connection with Cana of Galilee, where the wedding was held. So Cana being a Hebrew word, and clearly Cana of Galilee is a Hebrew word. I mean, Cana, the town, is named in Hebrew. So could it be that he's from Cana? Or if you translate Cana, it becomes, as you see here, jealous. Jealous, used only of God, for a jealousy for God. Zealous, we might say. I would suspect that's the case, because as far as I know, there was no Canaanites by then. They were eradicated back in the days of Joshua, so that one's done. So how can it be a Canaanite? It'd be like, I don't know, saying, I went to the grocery store the other day and I met this Philistine. He was right there. He's from Philistia. He's, a descendant of Goliath. Right there. I mean, he's a Philistine. He told me. He showed me his ID card, Philistine ID card. There is no Philistine alive today, so there's no Canaanite alive today. So what is it? I think that that Bullinger and Strong's are on something. So it's of Aramaic origin. And it basically is Aramaic and Hebrew are cousins. They're almost the same language. Can I even go so far? And perhaps I'm oversimplifying it here. But in our part of the world anyway, someone might say, do you speak Spanish? This is more true in Texas, but in Spanish says, hey, do you speak Spanish? No, I speak Tex-Mex. Or hear them, I say Spanglish. I speak Spanglish. That is, it's a little Spanish, it's a little English, it's a little Texan, it's a little Mexican. That's what I speak. So I suspect Aramaic is sort of Arabic Hebrew, mostly Hebrew. And so the words sound very close together. So if indeed we can say, okay, this is from this Hebrew word Cana, which means jealous, it's talking about Simon the jealous one or Simon the zealous one. My guess is, now there we've got Bullinger and we've got Strong's. Let's just do one quick thing. We could go to Morgan Multmann. He says that Dahlman thinks that the original Greek form of this surname was Kanaios, a zealot, on the form of, and it goes through, gives some other places you could chase that down if you'd like. For example, the British Academy, who printed Syriac forms of New Testament proper names. And now you know this issue of Simon the Canaanite, whom it appears is not a Canaanite. He's more from Cana. Let's look in John chapter 2. The third day there was a marriage in Cana. Now let's check that Strong's word. It says of Hebrew origin, 77:1. Very close to that, Cana, which there is just a town. Again, it's used as a proper name there, 7071, but that very well could be the same if we followed that through. Let's see, the previous one was 7067 versus 7071. Okay, so typically when they're close in number, they're the same root. So 7067 again is jealous, Cana, and then we have Kina, Kana, Kane, and Kana, and here's the one that's this place name. I think that's the way I would go, Russell, is to say, yeah, that's exactly what it is that Simon the Canaanite was either from Cana of Galilee or, more likely, Simon the Zealot. And Matthew used the Aramaic word, which is probably somewhat in use at the time. Otherwise, obviously, he would not have used it. Excellent question there, Russell and Kent. I appreciate that. So Simon the Canaanite, is he a Jew? Yeah, he's a Jew's Jew. He is a patriotic Jew. He is a Jew that will go the distance. Speaking of the distance, let's go to Michael in Rancho Cucamonga. Here we go. Matthew chapter 26, verse 28. Jesus appears to be starting the New Testament. But as I understand it, a testament can't begin until the second coming, or the New Testament can't begin until the second coming. Is Jesus maybe prophesying about the New Testament as opposed to starting it? I don't think he's starting it. I'm with you on that one in Rancho Cucamonga. This is the blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. That's a mistake of interpretation to say that's starting the New Testament or the New Covenant. The sealing of a covenant is not the delivery of a covenant. And Jeremiah had received the word of the covenant, but all they had to go on there, can I say it this way, was a wing and a prayer. That is to say, yeah, God said he was going to do a new covenant, but he's never really ratified it. He's never signed on the dotted line. Here, when Jesus says this is the blood of the covenant, he's saying, remember that covenant? You got it all written, but it's never been signed. And a covenant is sealed or signed in blood. We're going to sign it right here, written in red. We're going to sign it. And so this is the blood of the New Testament, is the guarantee of the New Testament, of the New Covenant, which you're exactly right. You said, I understand that the New Testament can't begin until the second coming. And we, of course, use the term Testament, New Testament, in the Catholic form. The Catholics are the ones that gave us that terminology. And it's unfortunate, but we're kind of stuck with it now. We've used it so long. So, but you're right, that new covenant doesn't begin until the second coming. That's when the new covenant is established and the new covenant begins. But it has been signed, so to speak, or sealed in blood. Just like the Abrahamic covenant. The Abrahamic covenant at the time it was given, remember they had that blood ceremony where Abraham walked through the animals, God himself walked through those split animals. And that was the blood covenant, so to speak, of the Abrahamic covenant, which has been sealed. God's got his own blood on it. But it has not yet been delivered. Same with the new covenant here. So in a sense, yes, Jesus is prophesying about the New Testament as opposed to starting it. He is, I would say, I would use a stronger word than prophesying about it. He is validating and guaranteeing the new covenant in the work that he has done there, and the carrying out of that. I appreciate you always. Michael from Rancho Cucamonga, which sounds like such a lovely place, doesn't it? And Daffy Duck would like us all to go there, I feel, because I saw it on a cartoon once. Look it up, Daffy Duck, Rancho Cucamonga. Sometimes I show it on this program, don't I? But not today. Not today. And you're speaking of Michael, he's got another question. Matthew 26:28, same verse. So let's get the same question. That's not the same question. This part of the question, is Jesus shedding his blood for all mankind or just for the many, meaning the Jews? You're right that the many means the Jews. I think, again, we'll do a study of this sometime, but I think when we see the many, unless there's just an immediate context that overrides it, the many is going to be the nation of the Jews. So here he says, this is the blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. Okay, who's this many here? I think this is the Jewish people. Now, isn't he shedding his blood for all mankind or just for the many? I think this is one of those occasions where the context is the Jews. Does the context prohibit that he's shedding his blood for all, that he is the propitiation for our sins, not only ours, but also of the whole world? I think there's nothing in the context that prohibits that. So here, the context, and this makes sense because he's talking about the new covenant, and the new covenant is for Israel, but, and that's the context, but it does not at all prohibit that there is that his blood is shed not only for many, but his blood is shed for all. And we learn that from other passages of Scripture. So here it's simply that Matthew is writing, and Matthew is talking about what he is doing for the Jewish nation and the Jewish covenants there. And we would almost require it there because it's a Jewish covenant that he's speaking about. And, it would be most out of place if this were to say, this is the blood of the New Testament, which I'm shedding for all. The New Testament wasn't for all. The New Testament or the New Covenant was for the nation of Israel, and so it just wouldn't make any sense at all. And Calvinists sometimes take verses like this, and they say, look, it just says for you or for a few or for the ones that I've chosen or for the many or whatever. That's not everybody, is it? Well, no, it's not everybody in that passage, but there are other scriptures. You can look to them, you can read them, you can understand that just because I'm talking in Rancho Cucamonga right now doesn't mean that I don't always also talk about San Antonio and Austin, Minnesota and all those other good places. I do those too. So the Calvinists kind of want to pull the wool over our eyes and hope we won't read the rest of those. But most of us do, and this is why the limited atonement thing is the biggest hurdle that Calvinists have to get over. And by the way, don't, and Michael in Rancho Cucamonga is not one to do this, but don't say I'm a 4-point Calvinist. There is no such thing. It's impossible. That's like getting on a swing that's got a missing link. That ain't going to work for you. Calvinism can't be 4 points. Calvinism has to be 5 points. It is a chain linked together, and any one of those links that fall, Calvinism doesn't work. In total, there's no such thing as a 3-point Calvinist or a 4-point Calvinist. So, when the Calvinist talks about limited atonement, they have to use passages like this, and they have to ignore other passages. And, of course, that's what they do. And if you're out there thinking, I thought I was a 4-point Calvinist, why don't you just become not a Calvinist? Just say, I just take the Scripture for what it says. If you want to call that a biblicist, let's go for it. I'm a biblicist. Well, the time is up. It's been a joy to be with you here today. Tonight, I'll be live in every way. And that is at 6 p.m., roughly 6 p.m. Mountain Time. We got the Gospel of John. Looking forward. What are we, in the 17th chapter, I believe? Making our way through at breakneck speed. Maybe you can join us live or on the archives. Would love to see you. Tomorrow morning, it's Thursday, I'll be back live in the desk, looking at your texts, seeing what you've got to say. All ready and prepared, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to go for our fall retreat, September 3rd through the 7th. Once again, you can find information of that at randywhiteministries.org. It's probably there somewhere already on my screen, but since it's not, I'll just push it again. There you go. Your screen will look a little different depending on what day you go. But over on the side right here, there's trips, and there's the Branson Retreat right there, September 3rd through the 6th. Would love to see you. Of course, you can go to Dispensational Publishing and buy a book, too, like maybe a dispensational synopsis of the New Testament on sale for way too cheap. Way too cheap. It's been fun being with you. Thanks again for letting me take these couple days off pre-recording these, and hope that you have had a fantastic time together. Thanks for those questions you put in. I'll get on them, and we'll take care of those. Until next time, keep questioning the assumptions. It'll do you good. God bless you.